It is an unsettling feeling to be standing in a place of absolute stunning natural beauty and feel sick to your stomach. This summer, my family was able to travel to Iceland to hike behind cascading waterfalls, to walk on moon-like structures, and alongside steaming geysers. On the day that we hiked on the glacier called Solheimafjökull, we first stood by a makeshift sign stuck into the ground, showing the place where that glacier had reached a decade ago. Beyond the sign lay a long stretch of desolate terrain in front of the glacier in the far distance. At that moment, in my awe of the landscape, in the clean, quiet air, but aware of the cataclysmic changes that are happening to our planet, I knew that I would be speaking about our climate crisis on this Rosh Hashanah. I also knew that I would have to be pronouncing Icelandic words. And let me tell you, it is not so easy. In 2010, when the major volcano erupted in Iceland and affected world travel and weather, news anchors resorted to calling it E15 for the 15 letters in 8 syllables that follow the letter E. E, Y, J, A, F, J, A, L, L, A, J, O, K, U, L, L. Seth Meyers went on SNL's Weekend Edition and said he finally figured it out. It's pronounced volcano. And in case you're curious, the volcano's name is pronounced Eyjafjallajökull. We are living in a critical time, but we don't all know it. How does one ever know that historians of the future will consider whatever years you are in to be pivotal? History does not announce itself and say, this is the moment that your children and your grandchildren will ask you what you did and what choices you made. This is a moment of hit orurut, waking up. This Rosh Hashanah day is the day of commemorating our creation, but not the first day of creation, nor the 2nd to 5th days. Midrash teaches that Rosh Hashanah commemorates the 6th day, the birth of humanity and the beginning of our responsibility for the world which preceded us. Rosh Hashanah is not even mentioned anywhere in the Tanakh, our Bible. There is a day of remembrance, a day of sounding the shofar, but not a Rosh of the Shana, not a beginning of the year, not until our exile in Babylon, and not even fully until rabbinical times, and even then there was ambivalence about a new year. If we are to embrace the holy day as a new year, then it should be about a return to our story of creation and our role in it. We have language from our tradition to recover awe and wonder in our nature. The myth of creation can give us meaning and, most importantly, hope and resilience as we face the climate crisis. And it is this spiritual dimension of our relationship to nature that will elevate our conversations about climate change, lifting them above politics. When it comes to caring for our planet, there are 3 different realms that intersect: science, politics, and religion. I want to suggest also that there are 3 fundamental questions about climate change. And if we situate each question in a different realm, I believe our conversations may achieve better action. Number 1, is there climate change? Number 2, did we humans have anything to do with it? And most importantly, number 3, can we do anything about it? The first question belongs to science. The second, to politics. And the third, I will argue, to religion. Let me explain. Is there climate change? Standing before that glacier in Iceland certainly made it clear. A museum in Reykjavik, capital of the land of fire and ice, has models of the disappearing glaciers showing that all will be gone within 150 to 200 years, which may sound like a long time, but along the way, our planet will be forever altered. Iceland held a memorial service this summer for the first glacier that is now completely gone. 97% of climate scientists have proven beyond any reasonable doubt that our Earth is heating up. The 5 warmest years on record have been the past 5 years. Is there climate change? The question is proven scientifically. The question of what caused this crisis I consider to be in the realm of politics. Yes, science has a clear answer. And I wish it were not in the realm of politics. But wishing is not the same as reality. The challenge with talking about what is causing climate change is that there are many competing interests. Different industries which will lose market share with regulations. When there are interests, there is money and influence and thus politics. With politics comes concern about partisanship. And I want to name that and say clearly, we are not entering the realm of partisan politics in this sanctuary. The last question is most important. Can we do anything about climate change? And if we want that answer to be yes, solutions, of course, will come from science and politics. But I suggest this question belongs to interest for future generations. It is also a question for religion because, frankly, the scientific predictions can be frightening and cause us to lose hope. It might not happen this year with Greta Thunberg's popular school strikes, her demand that world leaders start panicking. But what about in 3 years, and in 5 years, and in 10 years? As more fires, floods, and hurricanes batter larger numbers of populations. Tens of millions of people are expected to become refugees because of the climate. Nations that are poor, people who are poor, will be disproportionately affected by climate change. Will nations and people with wealth who have resources to protect them do the right thing, act with justice, and not lose hope? On cue. These are questions for religion, for our spiritual values. While science approaches the planet as a problem to solve, religion looks upon it as a mystery to revere. And if you revere something, you will work harder to protect it. The Hebrew word tov, good, appears 7 times in the first chapter of Genesis. Again and again, after speaking the world into being, God saw that it was good. Anytime a word appears 7 times in Torah, it is the most important theme of that section. The theme of creation is that it is good. And then there is this gorgeous, beautiful midrash, ancient, about creation. Upon creating the first human beings, God guided them around the Garden of Eden. God said, "Look at my creations. See how beautiful and perfect they are. I created everything for you. Make sure that you don't ruin or destroy my world, for there is no one who will take your place after you." If you think about it, you might not expect an ancient text to care so much about our planet. Compared to our world since the Industrial Revolution and our recent awareness of the precariousness of our planet, was there that much harm being done long ago? Yet from 1,500 years ago come these prescient and prophetic words. There will be no one after you to fix it. Today, there are millennials who are choosing not to have children because they feel it is irresponsible to bring more people into our world. Be fruitful and multiply is the first commandment to Adam and Eve. To be afraid of our future that much, to choose not to have children. Can you imagine? The Torah continues after the command to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and master it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea and the flyer of the heaven and every live creature that creeps on the earth. We humans are unapologetically in control of our creation myth. The Torah privileges humanity made in the divine image. We have dominion over other creations and creatures. But this privilege is about responsibility. There will be no one after you to fix it. In Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 2, an alternate creation story, our role is clearly to till and tend the land, the Ovda Ushombra. And to give us just a little bit of humility, we are told that the gnat was created on day 5, long before us. Our story of creation is not meant to be taken literally. That would be blasphemy, Chilul Hashem. It is our way of perceiving God's role in the world, of affirming mystery. It means seeing the presence of God within all existence, which goes hand in hand with evolution. If we see nature through the lens of awe and wonder, what Abraham Joshua Heschel calls radical amazement, we can, as we must, affirm science and still praise God. Pope Francis understood this. In August, he said, "We have caused a climate emergency that gravely threatens nature and life itself, including our own." In his 2015 encyclical called Laudato Si', he writes, "The creation accounts in the book of Genesis contain in their own symbolic and narrative language profound teachings about human existence and its historical reality. They suggest that human life is grounded in 3 fundamental and closely intertwined relationships: with God, with our neighbors, and with earth itself. According to the Bible, these 3 vital relationships have been broken, both outwardly and within us. This focus on relationships is underscored in a proverb that has been shared since the 1970s. You probably have heard it. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. It is underscored in the cleaning supply brand called Seventh Generation, which comes from the Native American idea that we should think of the impact of our chemicals and our actions not just for our children or their children, but down the line, 7 generations, which brings us to action and what we can do. This is about our personal responsibility in the realms of religion, science, and politics. Religion supplies the language, the purpose, the values, and the hope. Science, the instruments of change, and politics as the realm of collective action in society, the wherewithal to act together. On an individual level, you should know a few facts about climate change, but just a few. It takes only a few basic, startling facts to awaken action. On November 20th, we are having a presentation at Mount Zion about climate change for our further learning. And importantly, hold on to hope by speaking in spiritual terms. To recap, here is what the Torah teaches. Creation is said to be good 7 times. Vayehi tov. 7 is the number of perfection. What do we do with what is inherently good? All the days of our creation myth suggest purpose, meaning, interconnectedness, and limits. Humanity is created on the sixth day both to instill humility and the right to use our earth to have dominion over it. But by the way, after one simple infraction, eating of just one fruit, think about how many infractions against the earth you've done just this past week. We lose our right to the Garden of Eden. These are the messages of Torah. We need to act. Don't shy away, by the way, from small things. We are now composting at Mount Zion. Every plate, cup, knife, and fork that you pick up from our oneg tables is compostable. Please place them in the green compost bins, by the way. Making small change is about building habits. A newspaper article earlier this year spoke about a man who went to the gym for 10 minutes a day for 6 weeks. That's it, just 10 minutes every day. But after that, going to the gym was now a habit. He started going for longer and longer each time. Making the change is figuring out how to make whatever change you need to make less painful. I actually personally have Starbucks to thank for no longer using disposable cups for my coffee. Starbucks ran a promotion to buy their travel mug this past January. If you bought this particular mug, they would give you free coffee for a month. And 30 days was long enough for me to change my behavior, and now I always use a travel mug and clean it at night before putting it in the car each morning. It is a daily reminder of doing my part. A very small part, but I am reminded and I actually do it. Actions can also be on a larger scale, insulating your home better, putting solar panels on the roof, and dreaming of extraordinary actions. This summer, Ethiopia planted 353 million trees in just 12 hours. 353, I don't even understand how they did that. 353 million trees in just 12 hours. Even while the Amazon burned. We must keep the faith doing such actions despite the tragedies and not lose hope. In Minnesota, groups such as Interfaith Power and Light are encouraging a commitment to moving to 100% renewable energy. A few states have already done this, and Minnesota already is a leader in renewable energy, but we can do even more. And on the global level, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said that we must limit global warming to 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit over pre-industrial revolution levels in order to have a sustainable and equitable society. We have already warmed up 1 degree, so now we need to limit it to 1.7 degrees more. So can we do it? I was born in the year that we landed on the moon. That moon landing changed our view of what was possible as humans, and it happened because of a concerted effort over a decade during the 1960s. 50 years later, we need to dream not of a mission to Mars, but how to harness all scientific efforts to hold global warming to 2.7 degrees above pre-industrial levels by the end of the next decade. Yes, we do have the moral right to use our planet for our own benefits, but we also have the moral responsibility to make sure it is there for future generations. Noah is said to have had 120 years to build his ark in order to warn his generation and have them change their ways. He, as we know, was unsuccessful. That's right, our ancient Midrash imagined Noah spending 120 years building that ark. We do not have 120 years. We have maybe 12. In a year of the tragic horrors of Pittsburgh and Poway, when we have faced the most significant uptick of anti-Semitism in a generation and uncomfortable connections to anti-Zionism, as well as the showing of tremendous and beautiful support that far outstripped the hate in numbers and volume, but could not erase the loss and fear. In a year such as this, how do we spend precious moments not focused on our own security? I think the answer is self-evident. Humanity is facing an existential crisis. We potentially hold part of the key for solving it, a tradition of faith and hope, of universal human rights, of book smarts for scientific discovery. We need to wake up, hit'ororut, each of us doing our parts. And by the way, in case you forgot, it is pronounced Eyef Yatala Yokuk. And it is our responsibility. The whole circle of Bereshit, God's creation from Iceland to Antarctica, to the vulnerable urban coastal floodplains in Asia and Africa, to San Francisco, to Miami, to Indonesia. It's time to wake up and hope and restore our faith in saving our planet and act now for our sakes and for the sakes of our children's children and all the generations to come. Can you hear Ratzon, be this God's will and our action?
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for each soul. For the children of our children.